Hi guys, and welcome to the second Heather's review video in this little series. Now, as you can see from the title of this one, I'm mainly going to focus on the cast and the characters within the show. Now, if you haven't seen the original movie and haven't got a clue about what the show's about, you may not want to watch this video as it is going to contain a lot of spoilers. However, if you don't mind that, then keep watching. So, I've put the full cast list down in the description, so I'm just going to work through it in order, except I will leave Carrie Fletcher until the last. So let's get started. So first up we have the character of Jason Dean, or JD as he's referred to, who in this version of the show is played by Jamie Muscato. Now JD is described as being darkly charismatic, attractive, charming on the outside, yet damaged on the inside. Now for anyone who's not familiar with the story, JD witnessed his mother being driven to suicide at a young age and has grown up with a very abusive father. This has resulted in him having some very twisted views when it comes to the world. These views ultimately end in fatal consequences for some of the characters within the show. During the course of the show, we see three sides to JD. We see the savage wit that he has, the vulnerable side that he tries to hide, and the dark side he's all consumed by. Now, his savage wit comes in the form of little one-liners and jokes he makes throughout the show. An example of this would be in a scene where Veronica has come to apologise to Heather Chandler. During this, Heather Chandler has asked Veronica to make her a hangover cure, to which JD suggests drain cleaner. Now, when Veronica tells him not to be an idiot, that will kill her, JD responds with the line, hence ending her hangover. This is the first sense that we get that JD is a little on the dark side. Now, the other side of JD, like I mentioned, is his vulnerable side. We get to see this briefly during the song Our Love Is God, where we see the character JD start to get a little emotional. However, this moment is only brief and fleeting. It's only when he's with his father that we truly see how vulnerable he is. When JD hears his father coming home, he's no longer that confident, dark, charismatic guy. He's now a scared child. He's scared just as to what his father might do to him, or more importantly what he might do to Veronica, who's with him. Now we do see JD try to stand up to his dad, but you also see the fear he has in doing so. Finally we come to the main side of JD, which is his dark side. His unhinged character is gradually referred to and built on throughout the show and comes to a head during the song Meant to Be Yours. This scene is also where I think Jamie, who plays JD, excels. Not only is Jamie playing an unhinged crazy character, but he becomes the psycho that is JD. This is one of the many reasons I think Jamie is perfect for the role of JD. Next we have the character of Heather Chandler, who's played by Jodie Steele. Now Heather Chandler is portrayed as the richest girl in school. She relishes power and wields it without fear or mercy towards her fellow students. Now, for those who are not familiar with the story, slight spoiler, but during the course of the show, Heather Chandler meets an untimely demise at the hands of JD and Veronica. This means that we get to see her in two forms. We see her while she's alive and we see her in ghost form, both of which are portrayed slightly differently. While alive, Heather is evil and ruthless. Jodie does an exceptional job at portraying this, be it in the way she delivers lines that make you jump, or the complete look of disdain she has on her face throughout the show. Now the crowning moment, not just for Heather Chandler but also for Jodie, comes during the song Candy Store. Not only does Jodie execute amazing vocals during this song, but she also does it while performing full choreography, which makes it all the more impressive. Now, like I said, we also see Heather Chandler in ghost form. However, this ghost can only be seen by Veronica. This adds a slight comedic side to the show, or at least the character. During the song This Is Me, while the characters are on stage singing out Heather's suicide note, we see Jodie dancing on stage, prancing around over the top in a comedic manner. Now, the song itself is already kind of funny, but this just adds to the scene and makes you love Chandler all the more. You also get to see, while Heather Chandler is dead, a slight double act emerging with her and Veronica. Be this in like little things that are not necessarily said, but little mannerisms and acts they do to each other in the background. Now these are little things I caught and I loved in regards to both characters. Next up we have another Heather Duke, who's played in this version of the show by Tshan Williams. Now Heather Duke is Heather Chandler's second in command, but also the target of a lot of her criticism. She's an extremely insecure character, but once she takes power from Chandler, she wields it like a bulldozer. And ultimately, this leads to her being worse than Heather Chandler ever was. Now I think Tshan makes a perfect Heather Duke. In previous versions of the show, Heather Duke was only portrayed as a yes person until she takes charge of the school. This is not the case in the UK version. Yes, Heather Duke still goes along with what Chandler says, however, there is a little bit more of a hatred there, shall we say. An example of this would be during the bathroom scene. For any of you who are familiar with the show, there's a scene where Veronica confronts the three Heathers in the bathroom of the school and asks them for a favour. Now Heather Chandler laughs and so does Mcnamara, however Heather Duke simply rolls her eyes. Now this suggests that Heather Duke does have a slight disdain for the red scrunchie wearing Chandler. Another scene where we see a bit more to Duke is that of the croquet scene. In this scene, like in many other scenes, Heather Chandler snaps at Duke for no real reason. So at this point we see her turn to Heather Mcnamara and simply ask, "What did I do?" This means that she doesn't quite understand why Heather is the way she is. It's not until after Heather Chandler dies and Heather Duke takes power that she truly comes into her own as a character. For the first time in this version of the show, Heather Duke actually gets a solo song in the form of Never Shut Up Again. Now it's during this scene I think Tshan truly excels as Heather Duke. It is one of my favourite parts when it comes to this character. Not only is Tshan able to execute the vocals with amazing ability, but also the choreography. It's also probably where Tshan, or Heather Duke, has one of the quick changes in the entire show, which also happens on stage, which makes it all the more impressive. We now come to the third and final Heather, Heather Mcnamara, who's played by Sophie Isaccs. Now Heather Mcnamara is the most innocent of the three Heathers, but also the most ditzy. Yes, she is mean, but only on the command of Heather Chandler or Duke. When she's on her own, she's a more vulnerable and scared teenager. This is truly seen during the song Lifeboat. During this, we truly see how troubled with her life she is, to the point that she's considered ending it. Now the emotion and vulnerability Sophie is able to put into the character during the song just makes you feel for her more. Another thing I enjoyed about Mcnamara is the comedic side she brings to the show and the way in which Sophie executes it. An example of this is during Lifeboat. Now Lifeboat itself is a very heartbreaking song, but Sophie's ability to go from a heart-wrenching song like that straight into comedic side in seconds. As soon as the song ends, we see Mcnamara realise just what she's confessed to the entire school and mouth the words, "Oh shoot," and having a very embarrassed look on her face. Like I said, this is one thing I love Sophie for the fact that she can switch from vulnerable straight to comedic in a matter of seconds. It's also the comedic side I loved about this character. Not so much while she's centre stage, but more when she was in the background. This is when I found myself watching Sophie the most. There's a scene early in Act 1, which is a slow motion fight scene between JD and Kurt and Ram. During this, we see the other students in the background reacting. Now, Heather Mcnamara is the one student that you find in all fights that's egging the boys on. Now, I don't know if it was the fact that this was in slow motion that made this more funny, or if it was just the way in which Sophie did it. But I loved the way it was done either way. Now, Sophie has had a lot of time to perfect her Mcnamara, as she was part of the original cast that workshopped the show last year in the Other Palace. Now, the fact that she has come back again, I think is just a testament to how well she's able to play this character. Next up, we have the character of Martha Dunstock, who's played by Jenny O'Leary. Now, Martha Dunstock is the least popular girl in school and probably the most hated. She's also the most optimistic and naive. Now, in the context of the show, there's not a lot I can really say about Martha. Although she does appear in varying scenes, she doesn't really have a lot of stage time. However, she probably does have one of the most heartbreaking songs in the show, called Kindergarten Boyfriend. Now, a little background for anybody who's not familiar with the story. Martha has had a crush on Ram Sweeney for the last 12 years and is convinced he feels the same. However, when Ram dies and Veronica gives her a little bit of a reality check, she realises just how naive she has been. Just because Ram liked her when they were kids doesn't mean that he likes her anymore. It's only now, during this song, she realised just how denial she has been, and she realises what the truth is, that nobody really does like her. Now, the emotion Jenny is able to put into the character during this scene is just heart-wrenching. Not only do you hear Martha's pain, but you feel it too. Kindergarten Boyfriend is probably Martha's biggest scene in the show. It is not my favourite for the character. My favourite would come during the song Candy Store. While a big huge dance number is happening centre stage with the Heathers, we see Martha sat front of stage simply reading a book and eating popcorn. Now, what I love about this the most is the fact that there's this big dramatic over-the-top dance number happening on stage, and Jenny is literally sat inches away from the front row. Now, how she manages to keep a straight face, I will never know, and definitely is impressive. I know if I was that close to the audience and can see their reaction to what's going on behind me, I'd probably end up laughing. Next up, we have Ram Sweeney and Coo Kelly, or as their characters are affectionately known by fans of the show, Cram, who are played by Chris and Dominic. Now, I'm going to put these two together simply because they do come as a double act and they are a package deal within the show. Now, both are football players, they're both cocky and love bullying other characters. They're also not the brightest and are more than willing to go along with whatever the Heathers ask of them. Now, one of the main parts they have within the show is simply of comedic value. Like I said, they're not the brightest. Now, one of the funniest scenes they probably have is during one of the other new songs in the show, You're Welcome. This scene is set in the middle of a cow field and is simply Cram trying to convince Veronica why she should get with one, if not both of them. Now, this doesn't exactly go to plan for them and has very funny consequences. Now, another thing I have to give credit not just to Dominic and Chris, but anybody who plays these two roles, is the confidence they have to have in regards to the costumes. Now, for anyone who's not familiar with the show, during the end of the second act, Kurt and Ram get killed. Now, before they get killed, Veronica convinces them to strip down. That means that they get killed in their underwear. It also means that they have to do the entirety of the second act as such. Now, this is to the delight of many of the females and gay men within the audience. So anybody who can do an entire show, or half a show, simply in their underwear deserves praise. Next up we have the character of Miss Fleming, who's played by Rebecca Locke. Now, Rebecca Locke also plays Veronica's mum in the show, but because this is such a small part, I'm going to simply focus on Miss Fleming. Now, Miss Fleming is an ageing hippie who has a tendency for self-promotion. She probably also has one of my favourite songs in the show, which is Shine a Light. Now, Shine a Light is Miss Fleming holding a special assembly with some of the students to try and prevent any more deaths within the school. It's one of my favourite shows, is one of my favourite songs, not only because of the message and the way it's portrayed, and the vocals that Rebecca provides, but also because of the humour within one of the parts. The reason I think Rebecca does an incredible job as Miss Fleming is her ability to improvise during this song. For anyone who's not familiar, during the song, Miss Fleming asks a student to volunteer to share something they're afraid or embarrassed about. When nobody volunteers, she goes first and admits that she's been having an affair with this man called Steve. At this point, whoever's playing Fleming, so Rebecca, picks on a member of the audience to be her Steve so she can break up with him. Now, this always has hilarious reaction from the crowd. An example, during one of the shows I saw, Rebecca picked on a guy in the second row who was wearing a cactus shirt. She complimented him on the shirt and how well it showed off his arm. She then asked him, are those your kids? Now, the audience member very quickly responded back, oh, they're yours too. Now, Rebecca didn't even miss a beat before responding to this. She was then able to stay in character and keep a straight face while leaning over the front row to shake the kids' hands and introduce herself as Auntie Pauline. Now, this got a round of applause and very loud laughter from the audience. Like I said, not only is Rebecca brilliant as Miss Fleming because of her ability to improvise, but because of her vocals during this song. Just like Sophie, however, this is not the first time Rebecca has played Miss Fleming. she too was part of the cast that took part in the workshop last year, so the fact that she's come back is just a testament to how well she performs as this character. Next up we have the 4 father characters within the show, who are played by either Edward or John. Now, both men also play the principal of the school and the coach, but I'm going to focus on the dads. Now, Veronica's dad doesn't have that major of a role in the show, so I'm simply going to skip over him and focus on the other 3. First 2 fathers I want to talk about are those of Kurt and Ram. Now, we don't really get to see much of these 2 characters in the first act, as they simply have a few minutes just before the big party scene. It is, however, in the second act that we truly get to see them. Like I've said, at the end of Act 1, Kurt and Ram get killed, so we pick up in Act 2 with their funeral. Now, after they're killed, JD has convinced Veronica to forge a note to make it look like a suicide pact between the 2, as they could no longer live in a world where their gay love was not accepted. So the first scene of the second act contains the song My Dead Gay Son, which is obviously sung by their 2 fathers, and there's the 2 fathers reacting to the news about their sons. While we see Ram's dad singing about how much he loves his son, we see Kurt's dad acting all sheepish and embarrassed and trying to avoid the big scene that's now being caused as a result. I think John does an exceptional job at this. He really comes across as being the embarrassed friend or father who's trying to avoid this scene. All the while, Edward is busy singing his very important yet funny lines. Now, during the course of the song, we also see the fathers kiss twice, which on both times receiving very loud cheers from the crowd. Ultimately, they end with both characters singing just how much they love their 2 gay sons. The next father I want to talk about is that of Big Bud Dean, who is JD's father. Now, if you're familiar with the movie, Bud Dean comes across as a kind of easy guy, but you can tell that he's not a good father. Now, this has been changed up for the UK version of the show. In this version, he's a lot darker. He's no longer hinted at that he's a bad father. You get to see how bad he really is. If JD is dark, his father takes it to a whole new level. I think Edward does an exceptional job of playing this very intimidating character. Now, the 5 remaining cast members are a little harder for me to review. Now, this is no reflection on their amazing talent, but more to do with the fact that their characters have no real scene time, no big songs, or no real lines. However, they are, like I said, they are extremely talented in their own rights, and they also work their butts off every night. Not only are they involved in majority of the dance numbers, they provide backing vocals for nearly every song, as well as it being their responsibility for all the set changes. Now, this is one thing that annoyed me a little during one of the shows, which is the fact that although they are in effect ensemble members, they work as hard as all the other cast members on stage. So it was a little disheartening when it came to the bow to see everybody remaining in their seats and only standing when the main characters came. I, however, was not one of those people. On all 3 occasions, I was on my feet almost instantaneously, as every cast member in the show deserves equal applause, including the 5 that make up the ensemble. Finally, we come to the main character in the show, Veronica Sawyer, who's played by Carrie Fletcher. Now, Veronica wants to be popular, but also remain kind. During the show, we see her struggle to try and find a balance between the 2. During the show, she becomes friends with the Heathers and becomes popular, and we also see her develop a relationship with JD. During the show, she loses sight of who she is and what she wants to be. One of her opening lines in the show is, "Dear Diary, I think I'm a good person. I think there's good in everyone." However, during the show, this changes. We see her play a hand in the death of 3 of her classmates and become something she never wanted to be, a bully. She deliberately makes fun of Martha, even though in her head she had a reason for it. Now, late in the show, Veronica does realise the error of her ways and tries to fix it. She realises just how far off the path she's truly come. Now, playing the role of Veronica takes a lot of stamina. Ignoring the fact that she's lead vocals on 12 of the show's 24 songs and is involved in 7 more, with the exception of Shine a Light Reprise and Kindergarten Boyfriend, Veronica pretty much never leaves the stage. So to be able to do this for 8 shows a week, for 8 weeks running, is one of the many things that makes Carrie impressive in this role. Especially if you take into account, while doing the show, she was also able to maintain a YouTube channel and release a book. By the way, if you do want to know a little bit more about the show, I highly suggest going over to Carrie's YouTube channel, as she did film during rehearsals and films a lot of stuff backstage. However, let's get back to topic. Now, one of the main things I have to credit Carrie for when it comes to this role is how quickly she silenced the doubters. Now, hardcore fans of the off-Broadway show and random renders of the public were very quick to criticise the casting choice when Carrie got announced. The hardcore fans of the off-Broadway show didn't think that Carrie looked the part, simply because she wasn't as skinny as previous Veronicas. Now yes, Carrie is on the curvier side, but that doesn't stop her from getting one of the loudest cheers of the night every night when her shirt gets ripped open during the dead girl walking scene. It is also extremely empowering for many of the teenage girls who are in the audience to see someone of the same body type they are represented on stage. Now, as for the random doubters who think Carrie simply got the role because of her online following, that's ridiculous. For starters, this isn't Carrie's first acting job. She has been in quite a few others previous. And as anybody who can tell you, who's seen the show can tell you, her vocals and her talent and her ability to play this role are exceptional. Now, another thing I have to credit Carrie for is the emotion and the vulnerability she brings to this character. She is able to put herself in the character's shoes, which just makes the character all the more realistic. A good example of this comes in Veronica's new song, I Say No. Now, how Carrie is able to get through this song and not end up crying, I don't know. But the emotion she oozes during it just makes the song so much more relatable. This, along with many other reasons, which I'm not going to list, is why I think she does an excellent job as Veronica and deserves to play that role. So yeah guys, so that's my thought on the characters and cast of Heathers the Musical UK. As you can see, there was no way, with all my rambling, that I was going to be able to put this in the original review video, as it would probably ended up being over an hour long. So I hope you've enjoyed this, I hope you've learned a little bit more about the show and the characters, and I will see you in my next video.